But Sophie is from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. She is a talent acquisition specialist, and she's going to be talking today kind of about interview techniques, but specifically around kind of the virtual world that we're finding ourselves in at the moment, and again, the difficulties in doing virtual interviews. So I'll pass over to Sophie. Sophie, I'll share the screen, but I'll give you control so that you can go through your slides, if that's okay.
Perfect. Yeah, no problem. Oh, actually, am I all right to share the screen? Because I've cut a couple out.
You go.
Yeah, perfect.
You'll be able to do that.
Right.
The difficulties with doing everything virtual is that things change at the last minute, but yeah, that's great. So I'll leave you in the trusty hands of Sophie. And if anyone has any questions, pop them in the chat box again.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Thank you very much. And hopefully you can see my screen now. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. Hopefully in the next half an hour, you might learn something you didn't know beforehand about the recruitment process, a little bit about that virtual world. And, you know, when I thought about what I could speak about today, I thought about all of the different recruitment processes, all of the different assessments that people will use when they're interviewing you. And I just think at the moment, specifically because there is such a focus at the moment on the virtual world, and I know a lot of companies, us included, have now adapted our recruitment process to have a virtual interview in there as well. So we have a video interview. So I just thought I would focus a little bit on that, as you know, you guys will have been exposed, I suppose, in the last year to a lot more video things, Zoom calls, Microsoft Teams calls and things like that, but you might not have had that in an interview setting yet. So hopefully you will find something that you can take away from this session. So first of all, before we get into it, I just want to introduce myself. So I'm Sophie Draper and I work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. You might have heard of them, you might not. Either way is absolutely fine. I suppose when I was looking for my graduate career, the last thing I thought I would end up doing was working for a car rental company. However, you know, when I looked at different graduate schemes and things like that, the one that Enterprise offered, regardless of what product they were selling, really did offer that progression and the structure that I was after, and you know, the potential to earn a lot of money within the first few years. So that's why, you know, I found myself at Enterprise, and I've now worked here for 4.5 years. So, you know, I joined Enterprise not really knowing where it was going to go, not knowing where I was going to end up in the company. Started on a management trainee scheme, worked my way up through the branches to branch manager. And then I took a sidestep in my career into talent acquisition, which is basically a fancy name for a recruiter. So that's what I've been doing now for just over the last year. And if you've got any questions, please do let me know. But something I actually picked up on that was being spoken about in the previous session is the fact that you don't really need to know what you want to do at this point. You know, when I finished sixth form, I had no idea what I wanted to do at uni. I didn't know what I wanted to do for my career. I took a subject at university that I was just really good at. And I looked at my A levels and I thought, right, what did I do the best at? What do I enjoy doing? And I took that subject. And that led to me doing a drama and theatre studies degree, which you might think, you know, that's completely random. How did you even end up working in a business environment? But actually, it's all about those transferable skills that you gain throughout experience, throughout your education. And even though it doesn't directly link, there's so many skills that I gained throughout doing my degree that actually I've been able to use and be successful by using within my career so far. One of them being confidence. Obviously, you know, my degree gave me a lot of confidence in speaking to people, great presentation skills and things like that. So who knows, you know, if I hadn't have done that specific degree, I might have not been in the role that I'm in now. So that's just as an example. So we do find with the people that apply to us, probably 70% of them come from like a business or marketing or media or something like that, that you see direct links to business management and things like that. But then we also take on anyone really that shows us that they've got the transferable skills that are required to do the job. And that is how I ended up at Enterprise. So before I get into the actual Recruiter Insider tips, I just thought I'd give you the chance, if you want to either scan this QR code on the screen using your camera on your phone, or I'll put the link in the chat at the end if you can't scan. And that is just to stay in touch with me, first of all. If you've got any questions after that you don't get a chance to ask or you don't want to ask in this setting, then you can reach out to me. I will also send any kind of exclusive events I'm doing with UA92 or just any events at all that I'm doing. But also you get entered into a prize draw to win some Amazon vouchers at the end of this term, and everyone that's attended one of my events that signs up is in a chance to win. So please do that. It'll be a great way if in the future you decide that enterprise might be the career path for you, I'll be able to see where I met you as well. So it's nice and handy for that. I'll give you the opportunity to scan again, so don't worry if you've not already done so. So my agenda really is very short today. It's to give you some insider tips on how to ace that phone video interview, that virtual setting interview, and then talk about how we assess people through our recruitment process as well, and what we're looking for and what you can do to stand out as well. So going straight into it then with phone interviews, phone screens and video interviews. So first of all, just to differentiate what a phone interview is and what a phone screen is, they are slightly different, but they're both done on the phone. A phone screen is typically a 5-minute conversation you'll have with the company that you've applied for. That's just confirming a few details about your application. So, you know, you've submitted a great application. They might have a couple of questions about where you heard about us, what you bring to the role and that kind of thing. And we just normally put that in there between doing your application and doing an actual virtual interview. So we don't do a phone interview anymore, but a lot of companies will. So I think it's still really important to know how you can be successful at phone interviews. Phone interview is the same as a phone screen, except essentially it's longer. You know, it's 30 to 45 minutes long, lots of kind of questions about you, your experiences and things like that. So a few tips I would have for you, and this is from from both sides of being interviewed, because I've taken part in a lot of interviews in my time, and actually being the interviewer as well. So what we're looking for and what we expect and what we kind of don't want to see as well. So first of all, be ready. Don't just have rolled out of bed. I always find that and I do have days that I'm unmotivated, or I decide that I don't want to get dressed that day or whatever if I'm not on camera. But I find that the days that I do get dressed, that I'm not just in my pajamas and my slippers, they are the days that I am more productive. They're the days that I look more enthusiastic, and they set me up to win those kind of days, because I actually feel like I'm in an office, and it kind of keeps me on track. So I think, getting dressed, having some breakfast as if you were going to work, and everything you do on the morning before an interview, regardless of what stage it's at, it will affect the way you represent yourself. So just, be the ideal candidate by having yourself set up in the morning or in the afternoon, or whenever your interview is. Also, answer the phone the first time round. It seems really simple, but it's just a little thing that shows that you're a little bit organized. Don't be the person in the picture that's quite clearly in bed, because even if you can't be seen, it could be a phone screen or a phone interview where the recruiter can't actually see what you're doing at that moment in time. But the chances are, and this has happened to me, not with an interview, but my dad rang me on a Saturday morning and said, "Are you still in bed?" And I've tried my absolute best to sound like I'm not still in bed, but it's impossible. If that's the first conversation that you're having all day, the chances are the recruiter is going to notice. So just try and talk to yourself, talk to whoever's in your house, or a family member or a roommate, or whatever you can do, just to make sure that your voice isn't going to be really croaky, and it'd be really obvious that is your first thing you've said all day. Sometimes I find even at the phone interview or phone screen stage, that if I act like the recruiter can see me, I often come across more enthusiastic and keen, because I'm up. If I think I can be seen, I'm nodding along, I'm showing enthusiasm, even though they can't see that. It will affect the way that you come across, the way you answer questions, the way your voice sounds and things like that. So, even on a phone interview, if you just act like someone can see you at all times, be sitting upright, doing all the things you can do to make sure that enthusiasm is coming across, because it really is key. That's the biggest thing I listen for when I'm doing any kind of interview. Because essentially what I'm doing is I'm judging how you would sound to potential customers, and that's the way I'm kind of relating it back. If you sound like this to me, then that's probably the way you're going to sound if you're talking to any of our customers. So just it's really difficult to show enthusiasm when you're not in person, especially if you're not even on video. They can't see your facial expressions, they can't see you smiling, they can't see you nodding along, they can't see any of your hand gestures. So you've really got to think about how you can show that enthusiasm One of the ways might be doing your research on the company and talking about something you might be passionate about that company has done. It might be talking about the values and showing that you're passionate about them. It could be anything that you're talking about. It could be, obviously, your voice sounding enthusiastic, but I know not everyone is capable of making their voice sound enthusiastic, so that can be a tricky one. So definitely be thinking about beforehand of an interview, how can you sound enthusiastic? How can you sound keen? How can you sound passionate about the role? These are just things that you can be thinking about. Do the most with the time you have is really important, because especially if it's a phone screen and it's 5 minutes long, the last thing you want to be doing is getting hung up on one question and going around in circles and trying to explain something, but actually taking a really long time to do that. Because if your 5 minutes is up and they've only asked you one question, then you've not done the most with the time you have, because they might be wondering about other things about you, but actually, you know, you've finished, and that won't be amazingly good on your part. So can you think about a nice concise answer? Can you stick to the question? If you can feel yourself rambling, can you stop yourself and move on? So definitely do the most with your time you have. And I've spoke about phone screens because they are short, but that is the exact same with phone interviews and video interviews as well, because the more succinct you can be, the more concise with your answers, the quicker we can move on and find more information, more of the fantastic things that you've done about you. And that's what essentially a recruiter is looking for. I've already said do your research on the company, and this is really important. It can make you sound keen, it can make you sound enthusiastic about the role, but also it's kind of the minimum requirement, I suppose, that recruiters are looking for, that you know the role that you've applied for, you know a little bit of background about the company, maybe the industry that the company is in and things like that. So definitely don't leave that to the last minute, because you know, some interviewers will even say, what do you know about enterprise, for example, or what do you know about such and such a company? And they'll be expecting an answer. So don't just say, oh, I don't know, I think they rent cars for a living, because that is not an ideal kind of answer that you can give. So really doing your background research, you know, the best case scenario is you've actually done that research before you get to that interview, that you've actually done it before you've even applied, because you want to make sure it's the right role for you. And the last one, and I've mentioned this a few times already, but showing you're keen is so important. And there's loads and loads of different ways you can show you're keen, whether it is from the research that you've done, whether you ask about the next stages of the recruitment process and what to expect and how you can prepare, and loads of different ways to show actually you are really interested in this opportunity. And it's not just another one of the 1,000 jobs you've applied for, because we know students are going to be applying for loads of jobs, but it's how you differentiate in each interview you do for each company, and show that actually you applied for a reason, you can see yourself working in this company and growing within this company, etc. So just basically showing us that you care about the role that you've applied for. These are more to do with video interview now. So everything I've just said relates. Everything is exactly the same. Setting yourself up to win, being, you know, prepared, being productive, being up and about, blah blah blah. Everything that I've just said, it is completely relatable to both the phone interview and a video interview. But these are more kind of tech-based things that you can do to prepare for that next stage interview that's going to be kind of long and asking questions and things like that as well. So first of all, and it seems really basic, testing your Wi-Fi and your equipment beforehand. And the amount of interviews that I did back in 2020 is sort of like July, August time, when we first started recruiting again. So many people were like 10 minutes late for their interview and then blaming tech. And, you know, I got it because it was the first time we'd ever used a virtual setting as well to interview people. But you kind of set that expectation. If you're at an interview, you're expected to be on time, just as the recruiter will be there on time. So making sure you set that up. If you know your interview is going to be on Microsoft Teams, making sure you've installed it, making sure that you've tested it, making sure that you're on the platform 5 or 10 minutes earlier than the interview is starting, just so you know you're not going to run into any technical issues. If you're using your phone, which is absolutely fine, by the way, because you know, we're, as recruiters, we know that everyone might not have access to a laptop and things like that. So if you're using your phone, that's fine, but just make sure that you're not holding it in your hand, because it can be really distracting. I've had an interview where literally someone was walking round their house, and I was having a virtual tour of their whole house as they were walking, and it was really distracting because you know, I couldn't really focus on what they were saying because I was thinking, what is this? What are they doing? Like, so just try and have it on a surface. If you've got a phone stand, put it in a phone stand. If you can balance it up against a wall or something, then do that, so you're not, you know, moving around. Another really bad example of this is someone was holding their phone in front of their face like this, and all I could see was like the top of their head and like half their eyebrow, and that was through the whole interview. And the amount of times that I said, oh, would you mind just lowering your camera a little bit? Are you all right? And he'd be, oh yeah, no worries. And then he'd lower it, and then the next minute it was, you know, facing the ceiling again. So it's just really difficult, especially if you're concentrating on the question that you're being asked. You're not really thinking about what your hands are doing. Then you really, that's something that if you just kind of have that set up, if you're using your phone, balance it on something, then you're gonna be in a better position. Pay attention to detail about your background of your room, because obviously you can be seen at this point. So if you're doing it in the kitchen and you've got a really big pile of dirty dishes behind you, then you're not going to look amazingly organized. You're in your bedroom and your bed's really messy and there's clothes thrown everywhere. Again, it's just showing that you're a little bit disorganized. So even little details like that really do count. If you can sit somewhere where there's not really anything going on behind you that's going to distract you, then perfect. If you can remove distractions like people, parents, housemates, pets, if you can kind of isolate yourself away for that half an hour or whatever it is, then it's going to make you a lot more focused as well, because you're not going to be you're not going to be worrying or panicking about people walking in or your pets trying to climb up your legs and things like that. And that's something that I worry about, because I've got 2 kittens and I make sure this door behind me stays closed at all times, because they're really, really distracted. Some other ways that you can set yourself up to win is the dress code. You know, most companies will let you know what the dress code is. So just make sure that you know what that is. You're not going to turn up in a hoodie if you're expected to be wearing a suit, for example. And if you don't know what the dress code is, assume that it is professional dress, because you're never going to look silly turning up to an interview smartly dressed ever, no matter if that company's smart casual or whatever it is. But you would look silly if you turned up in a hoodie and everyone else was in a suit. So just bear that in mind. Or if you're really concerned and you don't want to look silly, ask the recruiter what's expected, because most of us are very, very approachable and we really don't mind answering questions. Reach out to the company. I've already touched upon that, so I'm going to glide over that. It's really important though, as you could probably guess with the amount I've already spoke about it. Practice commonly asked interview questions, and this is a really good way to set yourself up to win. You don't know what you're going to be asked, but you know, you might have a good idea, you know, depending on the role you've applied for. If you've applied for a sales role, you know you're going to be asked about sales. So practice commonly asked, sales questions. If you've applied for a retail job, you're going to be asked about customer service. So you can be practicing these things beforehand. Practice with someone you live with, practice with your career service, or whatever you can do to kind of, be prepared and not be on your interview and having loads of mind blanks and wondering, I didn't know, I really don't know what to say. Because actually there's a lot you can do before an interview to set yourself up in a positive way. Being authentic and actually engaging with the recruiter. So, if you got an email from me, for example, to say, oh, hi, Katie, you've got an interview next week with me. It's a certain time, a certain date. Respond to that email. Say, thank you so much for the opportunity. Whatever you think is appropriate, respond to the email. Don't just ignore it. If you can link with them on LinkedIn and send them a message and say, oh, hi, you've got an interview with me next week. I just wanted to have a look at your profile. Hope you don't mind, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you want to say, but it's just having that edge on other people and showing that you're really, really keen and showing that you want to learn more and things like that is absolutely can't recommend doing that enough. And actually asking questions is unbelievably important. You get to the end of an interview, you will always be asked by a recruiter, so what questions have you got for me? And you will be expected to ask a question. If you say, oh no, I don't think I've got any questions, then you could have had the world's best interview. But at that point, the recruiter will be thinking, oh, no questions, not one single question. Are they really interested in this role? So even if it's something really, really simple, like, what's the next stage of the recruitment process? What's your favorite part about working at your company? How have you got to where you are? Blah, 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 whatever it is. Just make sure you've got a couple in the bank that you can bring out at the end and say, yeah, I've got some questions, because that will really help. Like I said, it creates some doubt if you've no questions at all. It could be something on the role. It could be something about progression, just whatever you want to find more out about. So yeah, definitely prepare some questions. This is something that you guys might already have seen, you might be aware of, but it's really important. And we actually look for this structure in answers. And it's the STAR technique. So I don't know if you've learned about it. I did at school. I learned about the STAR technique when I was doing English, I think it was. But we use it. And this is actually a blog that we have published on our website. So if you did want to have a look at it, please go ahead. It'll go into detail about why it's good, why that's what recruiters are looking for. But essentially, it goes back to that point I made of before, where you need to do the most with the time that you have. And if you do use this model, you are doing that. You're structuring your argument so you're not spending too long on a question. You're setting the scene, you're describing the purpose, you're explaining what you did, and you're sharing the outcome. And it's as simple as that. So to give you an example, like one of the questions we actually ask as a bit of a hint, if any of you do ever apply for us, is tell me about a time you've had an angry customer or a complaint and what you did to resolve the situation. That is a question we ask every single person that applies for enterprise. So first of all, when you're asked a question like this, make sure you're specific. That's what we're after. We're after, don't give generic answers like, oh, usually when I have an angry customer, I'd normally do this or something like that, because they are the words that we don't want to hear. But actually, an example of an answer I would be happy with, for example, is, I was working as a waitress in a pub. Straight away, I've set the scene. That's done. Move on to task. I went over to do a check back on a table to make sure that they'd enjoyed the meal. And actually, the customer was really sad because the steak wasn't cooked exactly how he liked it. So I've already described, that's straight away, I've done S and T. I move on to A. The action I did was I apologized profusely. I made sure that the customer felt like he was being listened to. I asked what ideally he would like us to do. Would he like a new meal? Would he like it knocked off the bill? And again, I listened. So I've already done my action. And then the result is we got the customer a new meal. He was really, really happy. He left a tip, and actually he was back 2 weeks later for another meal. So obviously the customer service level was of his liking, and that's done. That is a really concise answer, a random example. So it might not be that example you use, but it'd be actually using your own work experience history. But that is just a really quick way of showing that you can give a concise answer and you don't have to spend ages on a question. But using the STAR technique is really, really key. And use the situation to your advantage as well. So if you're doing a virtual interview, the recruiter cannot see what's in front of you. They can't see what's on your desk. They can't see what's stuck to your fridge or anything like that. And this picture here is of my kitchen with my notes, with my laptop. And I was just about to do an interview for the role I'm currently doing. And this was back in July last year. And I stuck notes on everything because I've got a horrible tendency in an interview to completely have a mind blank and forget about all of the amazing things that I've done that I could talk about to highlight, why I'm the right person for the job. So I put loads of buzzwords on pieces of paper, stuck to my dining room chairs. And if I was having a mind blank, all I had to do was glance to my right and I'd have something. So notes is key. Your interviewer will never know. So it's a huge advantage. It's obviously something that you wouldn't be able to do if you're doing an in-person interview. So that's just one of my tips that's really helped me along the way. And it really does all count. So when you're thinking about what you can talk about in an interview, don't just think because you might not have got paid work experience that you can't answer that question, because actually there's probably loads of stuff that you've done that would give a good example. Volunteering, being part of a sports team, doing a module at university, leading on a project or something like that you can actually talk about that would be classed as a really good example. So that's kind of it for my tips. So I just wanted to let you know now what our application process looks like. We have a 3-step process, which is quite actually short for a grad scheme. Which is an online application, a virtual interview, and a branch visit. So that virtual interview for us is a video interview. A branch visit is really, you might never heard of one of these before. It's a very interactive part of our recruitment process where you go into one of the locations, meet the team, speak to customers, really, really show us what you're made of, but also making sure that the situation and the environment is going to be right for you as well. And then after that, that's it. Like, you're hired if you've done a good job. So that's what our recruitment process looks like. And touching more upon what we actually look for in our recruitment process and in our candidates that apply for our roles is these. So we look for the standard things that we expect everyone to already have, really, which is communication skills, a strong work ethic, and flexibility in how they can talk to different people in different environments, to different roles. And then the other things, customer service, sales, and leadership, really is kind of showing an aptitude. So instead of having these skills, just showing us that you have the ability. so for example, that you are passionate about working with customer services, that you've got the ability to be a leader, even if you aren't one already, that you've got the kind of skills and capabilities of being that, and that you'd be happy to be in kind of like a target orientated role. So not that you have to have done all these things and you've got to have years of experience like some roles ask for, but actually just that you can show evidence that you've got what it takes to be in this kind of role. And that's me. So that's kind of that's enterprise. That's some tips that will hopefully help you with that virtual interview. I'm going to stop talking now because I'm sick of the sound of my own voice, if I'm being honest. But if you have got any questions, then please do let me know. I'm just going to leave this on the screen because we have an event on Monday, and I would urge males and females to attend if they want to. We're covering loads and loads of different topics that will help you in the future with like personal brand and getting that career and things like that. So please feel free to scan that if you are interested in attending that event.
Thanks so much, Sophie. And actually, I think we have a few questions, and I think we have probably about 2 minutes to answer them. So the first question is from Sarah, and she says, I think you might have covered this, but do you have to dress smart when you are on a phone interview?
No, you don't, because obviously no one would be the wiser. I wouldn't be able to see. If I rang you now, I would have no idea what you were wearing. I suppose with me, if I know I've got a productive day and I've got loads to do, I often just feel a little better in myself to get dressed and put some shoes on for once, because you know, working at home is really difficult sometimes, and you feel like you've not got the motivation. But if you're sat at a desk, if you've got that, if you sat at your dining room table and you've dressed, you almost feel like you're at work and you're just a little bit more productive. So I think, you know, when I know I've got a big event or I know I've got an interview or something like that, I will just do that to put myself in that right mindset. But that is completely down to you as an individual, whether you want to do that or not.
Completely agree, yeah. The next one is from Kerry. So how would you advise someone who doesn't feel confident on camera? I work with young people who often say they lack self-esteem and avoid using a camera for lessons.
Yeah, and this is something we've seen so much of in the last year or so, because I've done sessions like this one up and down the Northwest, and often no one has a camera on. So I feel like I'm talking to myself a lot of the time. And it is kind of like a big problem, I think, amongst students, that you don't feel that you want to have that camera on. And I get it sometimes as well. I don't want my camera on, but I think it is important to kind of prepare for these situations where you're going to be on camera. You're going to have to be on camera, because you can't turn up to a virtual interview and have your camera turned off, because the first thing the recruiter's going to say is, turn your camera on, I can't see you. So I often find that using, you know, events like this, things that university is setting up for you, where employers are coming in, giving their insights, things like that will help you kind of transition from maybe not being on camera at all to maybe at some point, if you've got lots of tips, if you feel that confident enough, you might then, you know, start to think, you know what, I'm actually feeling a bit more confident. I'm going to turn it on and see what happens. And I think you take it. I think my biggest advice would be to take it slow. Don't rush into it. Don't put your camera on if you don't feel confident enough to do so. But look, think about what you can do to make little steps to make yourself feel a little bit more confident. Attend sessions that might give you a little bit more information or confidence, and then just, you know, ease yourself into it, and really start doing that now if you're going to be thinking about in the next, you know, 2 to 3 years, maybe even sooner, of getting that career, because the chances are you will have to go on video.
Especially at the moment, obviously everything's virtual, we're learning from home, we're working from home. At the beginning of the pandemic, I didn't put my camera on for work, and actually when I turned my camera on, I'm quite a smiley individual, and I was able to get my body language across. I was able to kind of show that I was listening. I'm being an active listener, and I was kind of really had that really great body language, just could show through the camera. Actually, one other thing as well, on Friday we have a confidence masterclass that's being delivered by the Life Project, so that might be one for your students or yourself to join on the Friday, and you can sign up via our website and actually have a look at some kind of confidence tips and tricks and just kind of build that. But yeah, completely echo everything that you said, Sophie, so thank you so much. We've actually now got to 15:15, so unfortunately that's the end of our day, but I'd just like to say thank you so much, Sophie. It's been completely invaluable information as well, so I'll definitely be taking all that on, and I know we've got a lot of attendees that'll take that on as well.
Brilliant.
Thank you.